All right, I've got 7 o'clock. I'll ask that our police chaplain, Mr. Brian Nevins, please come up. Welcome. If you can, push the little button on the mic where you see.
There we go. Is that it? Thank you very much. If you would please pray with me. Thank you, Lord, for your great grace and your provision. In your word, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, we pray for our mayor, for the city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. Lord, I pray that you would protect them in this role that they have done, and pray that it would be in an attitude of servitude. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Erlanger. And we ask these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Thank you. Now go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the February 6, 2018 regular council meeting. Let's please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mrs. Hoffman, could you please take roll call?
Mr. Burke? Here. Mr. Cahill?
Here.
Ms. Kyle?
Here.
Mr. Skidmore?
Here.
Ms. Sudkamp?
Here.
Ms. Cahill? Here. Mr. Montgomery?
Here.
Ms. Skidmore?
Here.
Ms. Pitts?
Here.
Mr. Nicely?
Here.
Ms. Fetty?
Here.
Mr. Blankenship?
All right, we have a quorum. Council, you've received a copy of the minutes of the July 2nd, 2008 regular council meeting and the July 16th special council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt as presented. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sudkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Now, you've also got a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting, February 6, 2018, in front of you. Are there any additions to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask that we adopt a motion to adopt. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mr. Montgomery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right, we'll move on into our special presentation. First, we've got a business spotlight. We've got Mr. Andy Blankemeyer here from Beacon Orthopedic. Welcome.
I'd like to just take a quick minute. I told the mayor I'll keep it under an hour, so I promise I won't go too long. But thank you to the city of Erlanger for allowing us to come and speak. My name's Andy Blankemeyer. I'm the CEO of Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Our location here in Erlanger is just on the other side of 75 here. We're about to celebrate our 5th anniversary already here in Erlanger, and we're proud to be here. Our location has expanded 3 times in the 5-year history here. Our volume continues to grow. We've had a lot of great reaction from the community. Our location here in Erlanger offers everything from physicians' offices, x-ray, procedure rooms are there as well. We also just in the last year and a half installed a new MRI machine for fast imaging as well. And we also have physical therapy. And the newest thing that we started doing in the last year is we now have a walk-in urgent care. So if any of you are hurt or have any ailments as you leave the meeting tonight, we're open till 9 o'clock, and you can just walk in. And you can actually walk in any day of the week, Monday through Saturday. Saturday, we're open till noon. And so we just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here. We continue to grow. We continue to be excited about our growth, and it's because of this community we really have felt welcomed over the last 4.5, 5 years. So thank you all, and I appreciate the time.
Hey, Andy, before you step away,
Yeah.
now, don't you guys also do a pre-screening, like for, what do you call it? Like for high school football players or?
Absolutely. So we offer high school physicals for all of our student athletes that come in. We don't have to be the medical team of your children's high school, but the way we do it is it's $20, and the money gets donated back to your high school's athletic department. So a lot of these athletic departments in the area are struggling, and so it's a way to kind of give back to the community. But you'll see information about that in the springtime here coming up pretty soon. So absolutely.
And it's also like a concussion.
Yep.
What do you call that?
So we also have concussion protocol systems where
Okay.
if you sustain a concussion in sports, you can come in, we do testing on you, and we make sure we get you back to play safely. Not too fast, but make sure we get you back safe.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
for
everyone.
coming out. All right, next up we've got Officer Clark and K-9 Officer Bodo.
Officer Clark and Bodo want to recognize someone here for Bodo's vest that he received this month.
Hello, my name is Michael Clark, K-9 handler with Erlanger. This is my partner, K-9 Bodo. This month we received his bullet and stab-proof vest as a donation from Vested Interest for Canines. A big part of that, and also a resident here in Erlanger, is Linda Krivsky. I don't know where there she is. She's been a huge supporter of our program, the K-9 program specifically, with both K-9 ASCO and K-9 Bodo. She's been a big part in getting us our first aid and trauma kits donated, and also the bullet and stab-proof vests to both Bodo and ASCO. So I just wanted to take a second to recognize her, because this is going to add another layer of protection for him to use, hopefully help keep him safe for some of the more dangerous situations he gets put into to help keep us safe. So I just want to say thank you to her and make you guys aware of it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Oh. You want the dog to come up where you can see him?
Sure.
Linda, did you want to say, thank you very much, by the way, Linda, and did you want to say anything about vested interest? Please, come on up. Come on up to the podium, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm Linda Krivsky. I live in Brightleaf Estates, but in late 2013, when ASCO joined the force, our subdivision raised the funds for the vest for ASCO, and at that time, Vested Interest asked me if I'd like to become a volunteer, and so here I am, still a volunteer, and I work with law enforcement and canines all day. That's what I do every day as a volunteer. They're a great asset to the departments. They're also family members. They go into the situation, most of the time, they go in first, and they deserve to have the same protection as their human partners, and so I'm very grateful that I've had this opportunity. And thank you, Officer Clark, for your service, and Bodo, and Sergeant Girdler and ASCO. Oh, I also have to thank Ed Bailey and Lieutenant Lemming, because they've been great working with us and helping us with the grant process. Okay, thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you so much. All right, next we've got the DARE essay winners. Officer Shepard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Tonight I have with me 6 DARE essay winners. They were first place in their class after 8 weeks of DARE and the graduation. To graduate from DARE, you have to write an essay. It's a very competitive. If you've, as myself and the teachers, listen to the essays, a lot of times we have to get out the Kleenex because some of these stories are amazing and will really touch your heart and let you know that just because they're children, they see a lot more than we think they do. Now, that being said, whenever they talk about me, just please know that the money has not yet exchanged hands. So tonight, I'd like to start off with Miles' first place winner. In her class, Cecilia Bowman. Come on over, Cecilia. Watch your torch. Right there, right there. You want down one more? Yep. Good, nice and low, just like you did.
Alrighty. This is my DARE essay. So, did you know that meth can ruin your skin? You sweat and you scratch it like crazy. Today I'm going to be talking to you about drugs and why they are bad. Peer pressure. In case you never knew what peer pressure means, it is when a friend or loved one in your age group convinces you to do things that are unhealthy for your body. In order to stay away from peer pressure, is to stay away from the people that do drugs or convince you to do drugs. You could also change the subject by saying, "No, let's do this instead." Or you could change your friends or change your friends. That means get your friends to stop doing drugs or get new friends. And remember, there are many bad drugs. Meth, weed, cocaine, crack, crystal meth, heroin, LSD, and many more. Make sure to stay drug-free. Kindness. Kindness is something everybody experiences in their life. It is when someone is helpful and nice to you. Kindness occurs in public, at home, and at a trusted school environment. Kindness is important because it affects feelings in the way you act. Kindness also occurs in bullying when a person offends the bullied one to make them feel better. Kindness is one of the main things that lead to good friendships. Kindness is very nice to have in life. It can even lead to best friendships. Bullying. Bullying is far from kindness. Bullying is a really bad and effective thing that happens everywhere. It is very sad. It is when someone is constantly mean or disrespectful to you. There are also different types of bullying: cyber, physical, and more. The physical one is when someone hits you while enjoying it. Cyber means internet contact. Someone could write something mean about you and post it on social media. Words really hurt. They really do. If you have ever been cyberbullied, you are not alone. Thousands of children in the USA get bullied each and every year, and I myself had been one of those kids. This is all the things I learned in DARE. I hope you have a drug-free and bully-free life. If you do, you could look forward to a healthy and happy life. I hope you have a good, healthy, and drug-free life. Goodbye. Sincerely, Cecilia Grace Bowman.
Next, one of our first place winners from Lindeman Elementary, Mr. Logan Robinson. Come on up, Logan. That good? Good sound? Nice and loud.
Okay. A couple of needles on the ground, a piece of rubber band. Innocent, right? Wrong. These could have heroin or even fentanyl on them, which if either of these drugs come in contact with your skin, you could overdose, which in some cases can be fatal. We learned about this in the 8 weeks we took a program called DARE, where we learned about drugs, bullying, and resistance strategies with the help of our amazing teacher, Officer Shepard. Here are the three most important things I learned in DARE. Social bullying. Have you ever been worried about your child, or even you, if you were a student, being bullied? Well, here's a way people bully. Social bullying is where someone says things like, hey, he's stupid, or any name-calling or gossiping that is repetitive. Social bullying is usually done by people who are jealous, mad, or even just having a bad day or week. Also, bullying can be to encourage you to fit in. One way people think they can fit in is drugs. Here's a little more information on drugs. Drugs and their effects. There are many drugs out there, but the one I'm going to focus on is heroin. Heroin is taken by syringes. The needles are not usually or never disposed of properly, so that's why they end up on the streets. Heroin is not only addictive and bad for your body, it's illegal too, much like most other drugs. Bullying can lead to drug use because kids who are bullied don't fit in while they are being bullied, so they want to fit in when they are older while they're not being bullied. So they think since so many other people do drugs, that it's cool and okay. But bullying, drug use, and many other problems can be solved by two simple actions which are in the next paragraph. Say no and walk away. Say no and walk away is a resistance strategy. Resistance strategies are things you can use to get out of situations where you're asked to do drugs or drink underage. This resistance strategy is my favorite because it's an easy way out. All you have to do is say no and keep on walking past them, or start walking if you were just standing by them. But this is the most important part. You must not look back because they could think you were having second thoughts and could get you to take the drugs. Other ways to resist drugs are things like avoiding the situation, strength in numbers, and having good non-user friends to help you resist taking drugs. This has been my report on our 8 weeks of learning DARE with our amazing teacher, Officer Shepard, who taught us the resistance strategies, the effects of drugs, and ways to stop bullying.
Mr. Mayor. Next up, we have Mr. Hayden Hungler from Arnett Elementary. Just like you do on the announcements every
Hey Hayden, let's do drugs. No, I say as I walk away. Hi, my name is Hayden and I'm going to tell you how to avoid the drug life. Here are the things I'm going to talk about. Marijuana, avoiding the situation, and code words. Let's get started. Have you heard of the drug marijuana? This is the gateway drug. It has more tar in it than tobacco. If you have seen tar, you would be disgusted. It is called the gateway drug because it is the most addicting. Now that you know about marijuana, let's get into avoiding the situation. Have you seen someone doing a drug? If you have not, let's hope it never happens. If you have, another strategy is avoiding the situation. For example, if you see someone smoking weed, you should avoid the situation and do not look back or say anything. On to code words. Using code words. Code words is when you would tell your parents, if I am at a party and someone is doing drugs, I will text you, my head hurts. That will mean pick me up. There are drugs here. You also get a chance to get a new phone. If you were somewhere an adult isn't, you know how to use code words. Now you know how to avoid the drug life. You know about marijuana, avoiding the situation, and code words. Remember, you have a chance to get a new phone. But even better, you can live a better life.
I learned this information from DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. Remember, stay drug-free.
Also from Lindeman Elementary in our other class, first place went to Austin Marshall. Nice and loud, Mr. Austin. Nice and loud.
A lot of bad stuff has been happening with drugs, alcohol, smoking, and bullying. In the DARE program, I've learned that those threats are really bad. Officer Shepard has taught us a lot about this in DARE, or Drug Abuse Resistance Education. I'm going to pass this on to you, so if you see someone using these threats, you can act quickly. Smoking, drugs, and alcohol does severe damage to your body. Smoking clogs your lungs and can give you heart attacks. Drugs can kill you or do very severe damage if you overdose. Alcohol makes your brain cells take longer to process your surroundings. Alcohol also makes your reflexes not react as fast. So if you are driving and you take a turn, you might not turn the wheel far enough in time and you could wreck. Some of the drugs are marijuana, heroin, fentanyl, and crystal meth. Marijuana causes higher risks for cancer. Heroin users sometimes take heroin because it makes you feel happy, but after 2 minutes, you start to feel the bad effects. Smoking has been a big part of my life because it caused my grandma to have clogged arteries that eventually led to a heart attack, which killed her. Alcohol has also been a big part of my life because my uncle drinks alcohol and has gotten into many problems such as wrecks, and he has lost his driver's license due to drinking and driving. Drugs, smoking, and alcohol are very bad and can cause major damage. Please stop anyone you know from doing them. At least that is what I wish I could have done. Bullying is a behavior that is aggressive and unwanted and can hurt people in different ways. Cyberbullying is one type of bullying that is very common right now. In cyberbullying, people hide behind a computer so they don't think they get in trouble. They think they don't get in trouble. Another type of bullying is verbal or social bullying. Verbal bullying is when they exclude people, and usually one person makes everybody exclude that one person. When people say bullying, they think of physical bullying. Physical bullying is bullying that is punching, pushing, kicking, or something simple like tripping. Physical bullying is repeated and very aggressive. Bullying is the #1 complaint in schools in America or even worldwide. Some kids even do bad things to themselves because of bullying. This is a bad thing to do. Please help me stop it. Some ways to stop these threats are avoiding the situation, strength in numbers, and changing the subject. Strength in numbers is one of my personal favorites because it helps stop bullying and other threats like someone trying to make you do drugs. Changing the subject is also good because it gets their mind off taking drugs or smoking cigarettes. Avoiding the situation means that you don't get caught up in a problem in the first place. One way to persuade your parents to get you a phone or telling them that you can use code word when you need help. Code word is if you are in a situation like at a friend's house and he is drinking beer and offers you one, you can use code word like, "I have a stomach ache, can you please pick me up?" And stomach ache is the code word. These strategies are very helpful. Please use them to get away or just avoid drugs, smoking, and alcohol. So now you know why these threats are bad and you should avoid them and how to get out of a bad situation. This is what I have learned in the DARE program.
Next from Arnett Elementary, our other first place winner from her class, Miss Mariah Jackson. Why are you pouting? Nice and loud right there. You got some sprinklers.
Have you ever thought what drugs can do to you?
DARE is a class with an officer that teaches you not to do drugs. DARE stands for Drug Abuse Resistance and Education. There is also a program that tells kids the things that could happen if they start smoking too much or just drinking too much alcohol. During DARE class, Officer Shepard taught me about the gateway drug, saying no, and using a code word with your parents. Marijuana is a gateway drug that can introduce you to other drugs. If you smoke marijuana, you can lose the ability to concentrate. One way to avoid smoking marijuana is to go somewhere else. Weed is another name for marijuana. Marijuana can cause you to have short-term memory loss, brain damage, and it slows your coordination or reflexes. Marijuana is illegal in most of the states. Officer Shepard taught me that marijuana affects your ability to judge distance when you're driving your car. A gateway drug is a drug that can lead you to other drugs, which is why it's important to stay away from marijuana at any cost. You just need to say no to drugs because they can ruin your life forever. Drugs have many side effects, including hurting your friends and family, so we need to say no. My aunt did drugs her entire life, and 3 years ago she was home alone and she stuck a needle in her arm, and that caused her to die. Because she died, because she did not say no to drugs, Officer Shepard taught me that if you say no, it can help you avoid a lot of bad situations. For example, my sister was in Ohio and somebody asked her if she wanted drugs and she said no. Officer Shepard also taught me that a lot of people don't say no to drugs. My cousin is one who did heroin and he did not say no to drugs and drugs killed him as well. It's sad to think about what drugs can do to you, but if more people say no, more people wouldn't be hurt by them. If you're in a bad situation, you should have a code word with your parents. A code word is a word you and your parents need to know if you're in a bad situation, so they can come get you. Officer Shepard taught me that if you're at a sleepover and your friends have drugs, you need to text your parents your code word. An example of a code word is, I don't feel good. Your parents should reply and say they're on their way and no questions asked. Officer Shepard also taught me that if you have a code word with your parents, it can help you avoid a lot of bad situations. For example, if you have a code word, it can build trust between you and your parents so they will know you won't take any drugs. That is 3 things that Officer Shepard taught me about having a code word. I've seen the destruction and devastation that addiction can play in not only the addicted person's life, but those that are around them, that care for them. I have lost an aunt and a cousin due to the addiction of heroin. I realized that it wasn't my fault she did drugs. It was her decision. She shouldn't have done drugs because me and my aunt had a special bond. I loved her very much. The question I want to ask her before she went to Jesus is, why would you do drugs? Unfortunately, I never got to know that answer, and because of this, I will never do drugs, and I will remember what DARE stands for. Drugs can do a lot of bad things to you, and most importantly, it can kill you. I hope that you can remember what happened to my aunt and my cousin. DARE will help me in the future say no, to have a code word with my parents, and to avoid the gateway drug. I, Mariah Lynn Jackson, promise to live a drug-free life because I don't want my family to go through losing another family member.
Our final essay this evening, first place in her class, Miles Elementary, Miss Claire Jackson.
Have you heard of the legend, the myth, the nicest, the funniest police officer ever, Officer Shepard? When I first started DARE, I was kind of scared of Officer Shepard. He's big, and I've only saw him in the building, but he actually turned out to be funny, nice, and also brings us treats if we're good. Drugs. When I took DARE class this year, I cannot believe how many drugs there are. I mean, there's a drug called fentanyl, and if you get it on your skin, you can become addicted just like that. Then the sad part is when Officer Shepard deals with it, he has to wear gloves because a knucklehead made that drug. Do you know my question since I was little? Why do people make drugs? And why do people take drugs? And now I know why. And the sad thing is, in middle through high, they want to fit in, so they take drugs. But the truth is, it just ruins your life. Resistance. Now, the most important part, resistance. I'm going to tell you how to resist drugs. It's really, really easy. For example, say it's after school and you're walking home with your sister and you see 3 smokers and they're from school.
First, don't make eye contact. After that, walk the other direction, and then if they come up to you, say no and run away. Bullying. I have a quick question. Have you ever got bullied? I know I have. I remember 3rd grade at Thornwild. There was a kid named Blake. I remember he told the teacher something that I did not do, and I had to apologize in front of the whole class and miss my recess because of something I didn't do, while he laughed his head off. Kindness. You might be thinking, why in the world are we talking about kindness? Well, I will tell you why. Because kids are getting bullied and nobody wants to be their friends. So guess what happens? Drug users want that person in their group, but that person has to smoke weed and do heroin to be in that group. So they go in that group because they have no friends. So they become drug users, which is very, very sad. And also, have you heard the saying, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me? First, that's a big fat lie. First, words do hurt. I can prove it. You take a piece of paper, write your name on it, and say somebody calls you stupid. Crumble the paper, and now try to uncrumble it. It doesn't work. Know why? Because every time somebody says something mean, it hurts you, and you can't put it back. Also, just like toothpaste, you squeeze it out, you can't put it back in. In conclusion, with everything you've heard from drugs to resistance to bullying to kindness and squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, remember, be a buddy and not be a bully, and don't take drugs.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity to bring the DARE essay winners tonight. As you can tell, I have a lot of fun in my class. It's a great privilege, and I thank you for that opportunity. And yes, Claire, I owe you money.
Great job, officer. I think everybody should know that Officer Shepard has been, he's received recognition statewide for the great job that he does right here in Erlanger. Thank you. All right, next we've got an oath of office ceremony. Chief?
I have to follow Principal Jackson's daughter? Really? I knew that was your daughter. I just knew that. We're going to introduce our newest member this evening, Mark Guthridge, and I want to thank Mark. Is really impressed that everybody came here tonight for this reason.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for that. Our newest member grew up in Richwood, currently resides in Park Hills, Kentucky. Mark graduated from Ryle High School in 2006, played college baseball at the University of the Cumberlands, and graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a bachelor's degree in health science in 2012. He's real close to finishing his paramedic class. It'll be here before you know it. June of 2018, he will graduate from the Cincinnati Fire Department paramedic program with some other Erlanger employees. He volunteers with the Park Hills Fire Department, also works as a strength and conditioning coach at a gym in Covington. Mark enjoys the outdoors. He's an avid Reds and UK fan. I'll work on that and see what I can do. His parents, Ron and Beth, are in attendance tonight. His older brother, Daniel, as well. His father's going to hold the Bible tonight, and I just learned this beforehand. It's signed, actually, the Bible they're holding by William Guthridge, who is Mark's grandfather, is that correct? Who was a fire chief in the city of Independence. And also in attendance, we have his cousin, who I know for 20 years of working together at the Covington Fire Department. Scott McVeigh is in attendance tonight, as well as Fort Mitchell, retired Fort Mitchell Fire Chief. So tonight I'm going to be pinning this on him, and I started to reach up and show him this one, and I said, well, you got a little ways to go. Looks like it's laid out for him, but he's got a little effort before he gets to the Chief's badge. So Mark, you and your father want to come up?
Welcome, Mark. Hold up your right hand, left hand on the Bible. I'll go ahead and give the oath, and then you can say I do at the end. All right. I, Mark Guthridge, do solemnly swear to do my duty as a firefighter EMT for the city of Erlanger, to do my best to the best of my ability, to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity, to serve the citizens of the city of Erlanger with compassion, courage, and integrity, and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the city of Erlanger. So help me God. All right, congratulations.
It's hard to get out of
Congratulations. All right,
We also, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was cutting you off. I was trying to speed it up
Moving on
because
to
they're
the
looking at me
service
angrily.
recognition. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
We have a 5-year service pin. The city of Erlanger rewards employees here for, I guess, beginning in 5 years. There's one that follows. It's a little bit longer than 5 years, but ours tonight goes to Kenny Harney. Kenny is not here. Kenny is a firefighter paramedic full-time for the city of Independence. And I've tried everything I can to get him to come here full-time, but it's not worked. It's not been successful. Kenny is a wonderful employee for us part-time. He works every 9 days. He's here for us on a 24/48 basis. I actually went to paramedic school at UC with Kenny. Can't say enough thing about the employee and the kind of man that he is. He has 4 daughters, so I imagine there's some dance, yoga, ballerina, something going on tonight, so he couldn't be here. But I know Kenny very much appreciates this, so we'll accept the 5-year pin for Kenny Harney. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hahn, do I understand you're going to give the next recognition?
Thank you. Mark Jolly, 30 years. Mark started in January of '88 with the police department. He served in numerous positions with the fire department as a detective, dare officer, school resource officer, and a code enforcement officer. He retired in 2010 from the police department, and in 2010 he came as a part-time code enforcement officer under the supervision of the police department. In 2016, some changes happened around here, and the codes enforcement department came under the general government department of the city, and he was given to me to supervise. So I'm still wondering what I did to deserve all that. But really, the police department's loss has been my gain, as Mark has been wonderful to work with, and I just wanted to congratulate him and thank him for 30 years of service.
It doesn't feel like 30 years. 1987, Lieutenant Sandel called me, said, "You still want this job?" And I said, yes. So it was the best thing I ever did. I have enjoyed, no matter what I've done in patrol, like you said, detectives, went into SRO, DARE, crime prevention, codes, and most of the people who know me around here know I enjoy myself and have a good time while I'm working. But I just want to thank the city for this opportunity, and I've enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right. So next up, we've got citizen and public comments. I know a lot of people have showed up this evening regarding the Dries subdivision, proposed subdivision. Do we have a list? Is there a list back there of the people signed up to talk?
Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Is there any way the people that want to speak about Dries, can they speak after they hear the presentation? Do you think that would serve better?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Is there anybody that would like to speak about anything other than the, please? Okay. Have you signed up? Okay. Please come up to the podium. Hello, welcome.
Hi, my
If
name
you
is
would-
Ann,
Yeah.
Ann Miller, and I live at 443 Division Street. My home is adjacent to the abandoned property that was on Woodward Avenue, which is now being known as Division. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Just had a couple questions. I guess biggest thing is concerns. I'm understanding that now that one lot is becoming a divided two-property lot. Just concerned about that, concerned about what this property will become. If there are two buildings on that lot, what will they be? Will it be two homes, two townhomes, two apartments? What will that be? What impact will that have on our street? That street is very busy. That stop sign is missed by several cars coming down our street. Many people do not stop at those stop signs. We are already concerned for our own children getting hit by cars. Cars have been hit. A home that is catty-corner from that property was hit, and just all kinds of questions and concerns about this property. It has become a haven for children to play on. You know, it would be nice to see that property become a park. It would be nice to see that property become something other than a home. I wish I had the funds to be able to purchase that property, but I don't. We would like to add on to our home. It would be a perfect spot to do that in time. Right now, we have a son in private Catholic school. We have 2 more children coming up that will probably be going to private Catholic school in 2 years. You know, I would like to purchase that, but I can't. I have a neighbor here with me who is also a concerned citizen about this property. And how can a Woodward address now become 2 lots on Division Street? That's another big question. You know, it's a busy corner. The home that was knocked down, we're glad. It was an eyesore. But we want to keep our street safe. And we don't know what's going in there.
Okay, well, there will be a little bit of a presentation on
Okay.
what's proposed for
Okay.
that later in the meeting.
Okay.
And then we can give you another opportunity to speak before we go into legislation.
Sorry if I told too much, or said
that's
too
okay.
much. I didn't know.
I think you did great. Yeah.
I was, this was shared with me a little while before the meeting, so
Okay, thank you for coming out.
thank you.
Yeah. I know I see Mr. Shriver and Judge Executive Chris Knockelman here. Before we go into the other issue, yeah, thank you for coming out this evening. Is there anything that you guys wanted to speak about this evening? Okay, all right. Any other issues or any items that wanted to be discussed during this section before we get into the presentations? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on. All right, so the next item on the agenda here, under reports of committees, public safety. Oh, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry, everybody. Jack reminded me I skipped over my own report here. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I'll make this brief. This time of year is the time when we are working on the budget for the next cycle, the next year. So we're working on the 18-19 budget right now. In conjunction with the budget, I've assembled the goals for 2018 from council and our leadership team. We're working on a presentation for the February committee meeting with the official presentation at the March regular council meeting. 100% of the leadership team shared their goals, and 9 of the 12 council members shared their goals for 2018. That's the most response we've ever had, and I wanted to thank those who participated. Another thing that we've got coming up here, February 8th, we had a concerned citizen that wanted me to share that there's a meeting on February 8th at 5:30 p.m. at the Boone County High School. This is when Duke is going to be talking about their rate increase. So right now they're proposing a rate increase of over 17% on our energy bills, and this is our opportunity to listen to their presentation and also to speak out if you'd like. Again, that's February 8th, 5:30 p.m., Boone County High School. We've also got a mayor's group meeting in Independence coming up on Saturday, February 17th at 9 a.m. And we've also got I'm happy to say, we've got the ribbon cutting ceremony of the Sun Behavioral Health Building, February 19th at 5 p.m. So with that, then, we'll move on to the rest of the meeting. So reports of committees, Public Safety, Police, Mrs. Sedkamp, Mrs. Kyle?
Yes, sir. While I have the mic, Officer Shepard, what he is doing for these children, they are our future. The man is just absolutely a gift on this earth. And I personally would like to see the children taught earlier because they're starting to be bullied earlier. They're starting to be tested earlier. But putting all that aside, those children poured their hearts out in front of a crowd of people, and they should be so proud. And Officer Shepard should be so, so proud. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Patrolman Cameron Day has completed his probationary period. Patrolman Rigsby was sworn in as a sergeant. Congratulations to Adam on that. Patrol dealt with 2 winter storms this month and were busy dealing with many traffic accidents. They survived with no injuries to any officers on shift. Rebecca Strauss has been chosen as the new police social worker coordinator, and she's in the hiring process now. This could change our Erlanger drastically for the better. I just think this is a wonderful idea that the police department came up with. Patty Sanchez and Bianca Jones are in the last part of the hiring process for dispatch. We are preparing to have our first coffee with a cop at Tim Hortons, which this is really going to be fun. It's an opportunity for you all to meet our officers, and it's going to be on February the 17th from 9 to 11. I'm not clear if the officers have to buy the coffee. Would somebody please let me know that? Okay.
If they are, then I'm showing up.
Exactly. And this is another really neat thing that our officers, they're wearing their military pins on their uniforms now, representing the branch of service that they served prior to becoming a police officer. And this is really a cool thing because it not only recognizes them as veterans, but when they come in contact with veterans on the outside, no matter what the situation, they have that bond. And so I just think that's an incredible. Cincinnati officers have been doing this, and it is shown to break down many barriers dealing with the vets. I also would like to congratulate recruit Edward Detmer on his graduation from basic training. He's going to be a real loser. He achieved awards for Recruit of Distinction, exceeding physical standards, and was the class leader. So, good job to everybody.
And I have a few items. This one kind of impressed me. The agency received approval to purchase a Cellbrite cell phone forensic computer to assist in the ever-increasing demand for digital information related to crime. And this tool is invaluable because it's a tremendous resource for the city, and it cuts down on the amount of man-hours spent during investigations. And it greatly enhances the ability of detectives to retrieve modern evidence involved in all crimes. So that is a great announcement. And again, this year, as in recent years, during the month of January, we are the host agency for the firearms training simulation. That's provided by our insurance carrier. During this time, we ensure that each of our officers receives extensive training on the simulator. And if you've ever been to the police academy, I know we use the simulator. It's really awesome. Your heart starts pounding and you just feel exactly like these officers feel when they go up on a crime scene. The simulator, as many of you know and have experienced, places the officer in lifelike scenarios requiring them to make use of force decisions. This training allows our officers not only to experience that decision-making process, but allows them the choices to employ realistic replicas of the weapons at their disposal during their day-to-day operations. In addition to the use of weapons, the officer also has to rehearse and implement de-escalation tactics to diffuse situations. Our instructors were also trained personnel from surrounding agencies. In total, last year we ran nearly 200 people through the simulator. So it's a great experience, and as I said, you know, they have rules when you are allowed to shoot, when you're not allowed to shoot, and that you have to make that snap decision. And so it makes you more empathetic towards these officers and their daily jobs. The other thing I wanted to mention is I'm always impressed by our canines, and we got to meet one of them tonight in person. They really, if you read the police reports, they are invaluable. We've had 15 uses of these, and 6 of the uses resulted in arrests. So that is a great thing, and I think the officers who take the training and time to train these dogs need to be recognized. And then also, before I end my report, I also want to congratulate Officer Shepard. I had the opportunity to have him come and speak to the students at St. Henry District High School when I was in charge of the SAD program. We had a speaker who kind of bailed out of the thing at the last minute, and I was like, oh no. And so I called Erlanger and said, could you please send somebody over? Well, Officer Shepard came over, and I mean, he captivated that audience. And for high school students, that says a lot. So he not only does a great job with our students in our school system in Erlanger, but he goes above and beyond sometimes in other areas. So thank you so much for your service. And that's it.
Chief Brundle's in the house. All right. You know, Mrs. Kyle, you did such a great job talking about the firearms training system, and I guess I did want to apologize to everybody. That's what's in the other half of the council chambers, and why some of you are standing here this evening. We typically would have more seats that go into that area, so I'm sorry about that, but that's why it's shut off over there. All right, then we'll move on to Fire EMS. Mrs. Pitts, Mrs. Fetty.
During the month of January, the Erlanger Fire Department and the city as a whole were saddened to learn of the passing of a lifetime member, Chief Jack Shaben. Chief Shaben's family started the Erlanger Fire Department in 1904, and in January 1946, Jack started as a volunteer with the fire department. He was married to Edwina and blessed with 4 sons and 2 daughters. His sons John, Joe, Pete, and Tony followed in their father's footsteps and also served on the Erlanger Fire Department. Jack served in various capacities over 70-plus years, including fire chief from 1976 to 1988. He was recognized as the National Firefighter Volunteer of the Year in 1996 and was also active with the Erlanger Historical Society. In 1996, a portion of Alice Street, where Fire Station 2 is located, was renamed in his honor. Chief Shaben's radio designation 76 was retired in 2014. This is the only retired radio number in Erlanger Fire and EMS. We give his family our blessings and thank you for all of your service. And he left quite a legacy within Erlanger, and we are greatly appreciative of that. A little more from the fire department this month, they also recognized James Rohr, an honorary firefighter, a 4-year-old boy who lost his life in South Carolina in a mobile home fire. He was being honored by fire departments across the nation. He was killed as well as his father and his 2 sisters. On January 11th, the spirit of James Rohr was assigned to Erlanger Engine 52, and he rode along with them. We thank you for honoring that young man. And that is it.
Chief Whitaker? All right, thank you. Next, we've got Public Works, Mr. Cahill, Mr. Skidmore.
There we go. Wrong way. Okay, in the 4 snow events that we've had in January, Public Works has put over 3,000 miles on their equipment. That's like driving to Chicago and back 5 times. They do an excellent job. They've patched over 300 potholes, and I think they'll be working again tomorrow too. So they're doing a great job.
So just an update on the Duke Energy Accelerated Service Replacement Program. So the subcontractors, Cass Energy, will be starting to replace gas service as part of that program on Concord Drive and Jacqueline Drive area beginning Monday, February 12th. This is weather permitting. This is the same program that began in 2016 to remove all metallic gas services and replace them with polyethylene pipe. So just a FYI. And Mr. Bogard is in the house.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got administration. Mrs. Skidmore, Mrs. Cahill.
Senate Bill 91 was unanimously passed. This bill will update city audit requirements. If you would like to find out more on the pension discussion and other proposed bills, you can go to the website, or if you want to contact your local legislators, 1-800-372-7181. And the citizen waste collection concerns, there were 4 concerns, 3 were resolved, and I'm sure they're working on the 4th one. The museum is closed until March 2018, and the free ice skating party was held at the Northern Kentucky Ice Center from 5 to 7 on the 28th of January. There were 166 attendees, and Kim did a really good job. She allowed for 175, so she's really getting good at figuring out how many people are going to be there so that she doesn't spend more than, she doesn't come up short and she doesn't go over much. So she does a really good job. And then Erlanger Night at Super Bowl. This is kind of different. It's on the 21st of February, and it's not on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's on a Wednesday, and it's from 6 to 8, and I believe it said you're allowed to have 1 game. So I don't know how many people she's planning for on this one, but they put some more restrictions on it than usual. Did you want to add anything?
Sherry's here, report.
Oh, go ahead, Sherry, sorry.
That's okay. I do have a letter to read from Jan Cassidy. It says, I am writing this letter to announce my formal retirement from the City of Erlanger as Administration Clerk effective May 1st, 2018. I would like to thank the city for the many opportunities that have been given to me. I have enjoyed working with and learning from my fellow colleagues for the past 20 years, and I'm ready to move to the next chapter of my life. The city of Erlanger is not only home for me, but also has many fond memories. Thanks again, sincerely, Jana Cassidy. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got Finance and Business Development, Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Montgomery.
There we go. All right. I was hitting every button but the right one. All right. All council members and department heads should have received a copy of our fiscal year 2017 audit report. The complete audit report will also be posted on the city's website. We're requesting Finance Committee meeting for February the 20th to have the auditors formally present the audit report as well. And each of the operating departments have submitted their budget request for the 2019 fiscal year. Staff's in the process of compiling all the data along with the revenue projections. Over the next 2 weeks, meetings with representatives of each department will be held to fine-tune budget requests. And when the meetings are completed, we'll have a preliminary budget draft. We'll be prepared for review by the mayor and city council. So if we could have that committee meeting on the 20th to have the audit report, please. That's all I have, Steve.
All right, Mr. Bodie's in the house. All right, thank you. Popped around the corner there. I did skip over one item under administration. It mentions the committee meeting, excuse me, the committee meeting report, the rules and procedures of the meeting. We're going to table that item as well. All right, moving on to the codes, building, and zoning. Mr. Burke, Mr. Nicely.
There we go. At the last committee meeting, we didn't get to talk about this property because of the meeting running too long. It's a property on Halbert Avenue, 3306. It's in poor shape. Mr. Kramer and staff went by and took a look at it, and their recommendation is, and mine, to foreclose on the property. Now, there is some options. We can do that, or we can recommend that the city does not initiate foreclosure or request further discussion from both city council and staff. My recommendation is to start foreclosure.
All right, so I'm sorry.
Form of a motion.
We're moving to foreclose on 3306 Halbert?
Halbert Avenue.
Okay, and there's a second. Any discussion?
I second.
Okay.
We've done the analysis that we've talked about.
There has been an analysis. Was that shared with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at that? Pretty thorough. All right, if there's no discussion, then we've got a first and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right, motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing we did talk about the property at 3304 Elizabeth behind the transmission place. We want to table that for now.
Okay.
Take a look into that a little more. So that's that one. What else here I got another thing here. We want to, there's a company that's requesting to operate a recreational type business at the property at the end of Vioxx Drive. And they would have to purchase some of the adjoining property, which is owned by the city, which is the concrete place.
Oh.
So I just want to know if everybody would be interested in us moving on with that. And I'd like to set up a committee meeting for the 20th also on that.
To discuss that further?
Further,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, why add that to the agenda?
We good? And now we have Drees fellows here. I'd like to introduce Ben Taylor and Matt Maines. Welcome. It's all to you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. First of all, I just want to thank you all for advancing this issue to the meeting this evening and moving this up on your agenda. I spoke quite a bit last time on our company's history. We're very excited to continue that legacy here in Erlanger and with the List family. I will mention that it's our 90th anniversary. We have an exciting new home that's about to open up in the enclave at Southridge on Turkey Foot, which is in the city. And that's going to be a home that's open to the public coming up in April. It's going to showcase all the new design features, technology, and where we've come in the last 90 years of home building. So we're very excited about that. So tonight I want to take some time to review the revisions to our plan. It's going to be a much more brief presentation than you saw last time. So hopefully I can get us all out of here before the impending winter weather. What we wanted to focus on are plan revisions and some additional detail based on the comments that were brought up at the previous meeting in January and some of our subsequent discussions with city staff. For anyone who doesn't know where the site is, it's located on Narrows Road, directly across from the Fire and EMS Center. This is a 70-acre site comprised of a couple of ridges that run here and here on the site and a stream that bisects the site. We are requesting that this property have a zone map amendment to R1C RCD from R1C. So this plan will look much the same to many of you as what I presented last time. I do want to go over some of the major revisions that were made to this. First of all, we understood a concern for the residents in Doe Run Trails and along Buck Hill about the transition to much smaller lots than what exists there. So one of the revisions that we made here along what is noted as Street A is a conversion of these lots to 60 feet at the building line on this side from 52 previously, and on this side they measure at 70 feet wide at the building line. So that did reduce the unit count somewhat in this area, and is a change we think helps make that more consistent in transitioning to the existing neighborhood. Another concern that was raised at the last meeting is a lot of the homes that back up to Narrows Road, what that looks like, how would we intend to treat that, what's the architecture, and some of the conditions that you have before you this evening address that. So the first area I'll go over is along Narrows Road here. This concept plan shows an idea of what the landscaping would look like along Narrows Road. So we would utilize that open space to both buffer the rear of the home sites along Narrows, as well as supplement this walk so that you have a nice experience when you're walking along that pedestrian way for the residents in this community, as well as the greater Erlanger area. So we'd have big shade trees, shrubs, flowering trees along that area, so that as you walk through there, it would be more like a park setting than the pasture or meadow it is today. At the last meeting, I reviewed quite a bit of the demographic data and market conditions that are in the Erlanger area. Again, that's what we use to drive our decision and how we designed this site to be a lifestyle community where we're offering full maintenance services for the patio homes, snow removal, yard maintenance, and on the townhomes right here, a full scope of services, including the exterior maintenance of those buildings. So a resident moving into those homes pays a condo fee as well as their HOA fee, and don't ever have to worry about painting the outside of their home or any of the exterior materials, treating decks and that type of thing. So this, just so you understand dimensionally what's going on here, this is a 160-foot setback from Narrows Road right-of-way to the rear of those townhomes. And I'll get into some architectural treatments later about how we're handling that. So this greenway and the landscaping we propose goes along the full extent of Narrows Road. And we did hear concerns from a couple of the neighbors here at our last meeting. And what we've proposed for that area specifically along 3921 Narrows Road and 3917 Narrows Road is a buffer yard that consists of 6 trees per 100 feet. That would be at least 2 large canopy trees, so oaks or maples, things of that nature, and 4 large evergreen trees, spruce or pine trees. And we would work with those homeowners on flagging those areas out and trying to create a buffer that is consistent with where their properties are and how they use the space. So if we felt like we needed to group them closer to where a backyard patio was or something, we can do that. This is just a zoom in of the area I was talking about, so you can see that dimension there and how we handle the trees here along the rear of those homes. So the idea is that you have a nice green streetscape along all of Narrows Road as you drive around the community. Other issue that was brought up at Kenton County Planning Commission, and we tried to steer away from it then, and we heard at the last meeting about how the residents would like for this not to be connected vehicularly between, this is Mesa Drive right here, and our proposed street. So we're not proposing any street connection there due to topography, but we are showing a sidewalk connection that would tie into the existing sidewalk on Mesa Drive. So that would allow residents from Brightleaf, Mesa Drive to circulate through the community and get to some of the other park areas that exist in the city. And this is just an updated trail and circulation map that you saw at the last meeting. The only change there has been this connection here, which kind of brings this whole part of Erlanger through the circulation, would get you to Flagship Park or the Glades Park here. So this is an update of the summary of the plan. So we now have 88 of the home sites are at the original dimension of 52 feet. Those exist mainly on the west side of the site. And then what you saw along Street A has been revised to 21 60 by 120 foot lots, which is a blend, like I mentioned, of 60 and 70 foot lots. So you can see the square foot averages here of the lots have increased in that area. And then due to the reduction in density, we are committing to 2.24 units per acre. That is one of the conditions that's been outlined as it was submitted to you. So 157 homes total would be the new number. And as far as architectural requirements, what we looked at is to protect the integrity of homes within the community as well as blend better with existing residences in Erlanger. We would commit to front elevations having a mix of brick or stone masonry or hardy plank siding. And that with some of our new designs where we have more of a farmhouse or vernacular architecture that comes from existing examples in the area, we a lot of times have a stone water table that would be, say, halfway up and we have siding above it. But it does allow for a lot of color and interest to be added to the streetscape. So we would commit to do that on the front of the homes. And then for any of those townhomes or the single family or detached patio homes that back into Narrows Road, what we would commit to is what you see here is a brick wrap. So we step that down with grade, wrap the lower basement level, and then for kind of a mix of color and interest, we do have siding above that. And then over here, this would be typical of a patio home where this brick is dropped to grade down at the basement level. So as you drive along Narrows Road, you're looking at brick rears instead of an 8-foot foundation wall. And I just would add that there's, this is one of our models, a lot of detail and quality in the materials. We do, wood plank ceilings. We've got aluminum black, rails and decks there. People typically decorate these and put, very nice outdoor living elements there. that make these look very good from the front and rear. So I thank you for your time and consideration. I would hope that between what you saw last time and the revisions and additions that we've made and the conditions that have been submitted to you, that you would agree that this is in keeping with the comprehensive plan and a good use for the site, where we're asking that this be changed to an RCD zone. I do have some of the additional slides from the previous meeting if you did want to talk about product or some of the other exhibits that were there from last time. I can scroll through that. I don't know what kind of questions or discussion you may have, so just keep that in mind. Again, thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We'll go ahead and wrap up a few more of the items on the agenda here and then come back around to the public comments before legislation. Okay, so Okay. All right, so forget about what I just said. We've got to have a motion from this committee regarding this. So let's go ahead and have the public comment now. There should be a list of people back there. Mr. Hahn, is there people who've signed up to speak? Okay. Yeah, and so while we're waiting on that, I guess what I would like to do is we'll give people a 3-minute limit to speak. If there's something that has come up already, I would ask that instead of rehashing the entire discussion or issue, that you maybe say that you agree with the person before you. I guess I'll take this opportunity also to just mention a couple things. Keep in mind that what Dries is asking for is a zone change that would allow them to put the townhomes in on the parcel. The property is already zoned to be able to be developed as a residential subdivision. So we don't necessarily control, if somebody wants to come in tomorrow and begin to build a subdivision in there, they don't necessarily have to come to us and ask for that approval. We have this opportunity here because they're asking for a zone change. So issues that are regarding traffic are the same whether someone comes here and asks for permission or not. There's going to be a traffic issue when that parcel is developed. And it is going to be developed as a subdivision, whether it's now or soon. So traffic was one thing that was brought up many times. The other thing was home value was brought up a lot of times as well. We don't regulate that. This council doesn't regulate things like the home value or the density or the traffic. So, trying to just isolate that what this council is paying attention to is the zone, okay, and the zone change. So the first person I've got on the list here is Mr. Mike Chisenhall.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The only concern I have, it's just like you said, I know it's going to be developed. I hope it's developed in a way that adds value to Erlanger, the community. This doesn't affect me as much as it does the people who have the 18 houses next to their property, like came up before. My concern is that, we saw a proposal like this when they built Lakemont. I got to meet most of you people because I live in Lakemont, and you know what we went through. All I ask is that if you approve what they want to do, that you get it in writing and you make them live up to the agreement. That's all I ask. Because otherwise you're going to be looking at somebody who lives in this new subdivision 4 or 5 years from now is complaining because Drees is building something other than what they said they were going to build. So I've just had a lot of problems with these people not doing what they said they were going to do. So that's just keep Mark Stewart busy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chisenhall. We have been reminded by Drees a number of times that there have been some management changes since then. We would, in fact, have a development plan in place that they would have to stick to. And they have adjusted the number of the residences here to 157, and they're not going to be able to do 158. It's 157. So that type of stuff, they're going to be, it's a pretty strict guideline for them to follow. One other thing I did want to say too is I've got to commend Drees on this. They've been good to work with through this process. They've listened to people's comments, concerns, complaints, issues throughout the process. And they have actually come back and made changes to try to address some of those issues. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And we do definitely have a unique situation here to have the opportunity to be able to negotiate with them right now. So thank you for that. Next, we've got Mr. Greg Mean. Am I saying that right? Mean? M-E-E or M-E-N-N-E? No? Oh, no. Okay, thank you. All right, Ron Jividen. Welcome.
I'm Ron Jividen. I live at 4010 Narrows Road. Have lived there since 1979. I know the List family very well. And I don't begrudge them doing something with their property. It's their property and they should be able to do something. I'm against the traffic, like you've already spoken for. It's bad now. It is terrible now. So we know the developers aren't going to do anything about it. The List can't do anything about it because they're just selling the land. City Council, I had been told Sunday by a council member, they're not going to do anything about it. So therefore, who's going to be responsible for the added, and they're going to be accidents, let's praise the Lord, never a death, but it's going to happen. We've got to do something intensely with it in the facts of either stop signs, if you're not going to redo the road, reducing the speed limit tremendously. I think now it's, 35? Let's go 25. Because I guarantee you they're not going to hold 25. They will get their 35 out of it. The other thing I got against it, well, it's not up here right now. They're wanting to do the homes differently on the lots as I'm facing the List farm from my house on the right-hand side. But I'm more concerned about the lots on the left-hand side. The fellow here from Drees has already told me 10 feet between the homes. My garage door entrance is only 11 feet for me to get in and out of my garage. Now you're talking 10 feet. Has the state fire marshal or the city fire marshal, don't they have some concerns about this? Hopefully never for one of these houses to catch on fire. But buddy, you better have a lot of cities around here to come in here to help you because you're going to have a fire. Not only one home, but it could be several. And that's not right. That's about all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. I am looking at the some of the conditions here, and one of them, this is the stage 1 approval. Number 5 on this list says applicant agrees to comply with any findings or conclusions as recommended by a traffic impact study, which is required at the stage 2 plan submission. So they will have to go through that traffic study. There's already been talk of adding the stop signs, and so thank you. I definitely appreciate you speaking to that, Mr. Chabon. But that is definitely part of what's going to be considered if we allow them to go to the next step. So thank you. Next, we've got William Whitley. And then we've got Linda Moss.
Honorable Mayor, Council. The only thing that I have to add to what Ron said was the houses, the row houses that we have on the west side of the property. What about public safety? When he was talking about that you have 10 foot between the buildings, you only have one way in and one way out. And with those many homes that close together, if there should be a fire, when the fire department goes in there to do what they have to do, how's those people going to get away from that? They would have to walk out of there in order to be safe. And as I said before at the other meeting, and other than be redundant, but I used to be on the fire department. So I think along those lines because of public safety. And I do respect every one of your positions there, and I would not want to be in your position to have to make the decision. But it is something very, very serious to think about with public safety. And I know you said that the traffic situation, but between that and those homes being there, that's my only issue. You really need to consider the safety of the public, not only for the kids, but the adults, the people that buy those homes if something should happen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whitley. I did actually have a conversation with our fire chief, and I did not necessarily intend to speak to everybody speaking this evening. I don't even have a vote in this, but I did want to address some of these things that have come up. So nothing governs what these houses are made out of, but what Dries is proposing is a brick wrap on these houses. Again, the zone that is existing on the parcel, there's nothing that says that the houses have to be more than 10 feet apart, and they could be vinyl. They could be a wood balloon frame house with vinyl siding on them. Chief Whitaker had said that he would prefer, if the houses are 10 feet apart, they do have a brick wrap. I mean, so that there is some protection there from house to house. It doesn't hurt that Fire Station 3 is a stone's throw away, so that's good as well. So thank you. Lynn? And then next we've got Georgette Nordlow.
Hello, I am Lynn DeMoss. I live at 4060 Deer Chase, and I would also like to take a minute to commend the Public Works. I think that the job they do to clear our streets and keep the potholes filled is just fantastic. It's the best around. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you a question at this time, so tell me if I can't, but what you just said is different than what I understood. If you would change the zoning to RCD, we think Dries is going to buy it. We think Dries is going to stick to this plan, but things happen. What if it doesn't end up being Dries? The zoning's changed, is that correct?
Yeah, but that's why there's a development plan agreement that if, I'm sorry, I'm not loud enough without this. There we go. Woo. Obviously, none of us have a vote here, right? Council has to make this decision, but if the vote is to overturn the recommendation of KCPC, there's a pretty thick packet here, which is on pending legislation, and included in the ordinance are all of the conditions that Dries has just discussed, including the density condition, as well as the development plan agreement, which is about a 6-page document, which also includes all of the conditions that Dries has agreed to, would be recorded of record. So even though the zone change would be made, this development, so let's say Dries did then end up selling it to Fisher or somebody else, they would have to honor this development plan agreement or come back to council.
And again, I think that's our concern. Then you're back to being in the same problem. Once a zone is changed, it's changed. And it just simply does not go along with the area. This is a suburban area. It's not urban. There are areas around here that are urban. It's really even teeters more on rural. So I appreciate that Dries is trying to make some changes, but it all goes back to the looks of the area and the small lots. It's not an area for that. I feel like the zoning should stay the same due to the surrounding areas. We also, again, did go through PDS. They have large salaries. I assume they know what they're doing. They also agree that it does not go along with the current area and that the zoning should stay the same. So that is, I am still very concerned of the small lots. I can see it being developed with just straight residential. If people do want these lifestyles, they can build a ranch house. There's plenty of services out there that will paint, that will maintain lawn care. They can hire my son. I can keep them at the V. So I just don't feel like it's appropriate for this area.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. DeMoss.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
I just want to clarify one thing. You stated that the PDS was against the development, and that's not accurate. PDS actually recommended for the development. Kentucky Planning Commission is the one that voted against it.
Thank you. That they, yes, that they do not agree with the plan.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Jeff Nordlow, and then we've got Colleen Berger.
My name's Jeff Nordlow. I live at 908 Doe Ridge, and I do believe it's a better plan, that's for sure. I like the bigger lots on Doe Ridge. I live on Doe Ridge. My only recommendations is that the houses built on that part, since they're bigger lots, that they be houses that are the same as, Trails of Doe Run in Lakemont subdivision. Since you're building bigger lots, you might as well build nicer houses on those lots. I've been through this before. I've seen 2 development plan agreements violated where I've lived in the city of Erlanger. I've lived in Erlanger for 54 years. This is my 3rd time. To say that they have to follow the development plan agreement when I've seen 2 development plan agreements violated is kind of shocking to me. And I have all that documentation. I won't get into it. This RCD zone, I speak zoning. I'm very good at zoning. Where everybody speaks from emotion, I know zoning very well. This RCD zone clause is kind of shocking to me because it's basically lets the developer decide what they want to build as long as it's approved in the plan. So it kind of overrides a lot of those codes that are built into what planning and zoning does. And that does include safety. So the planning commission or the professionals said, no, we can't comprehend this in our comprehensive plan. So who is anybody else to say, we comprehend it, based on a trail or a tree or something like that. Some of the other areas where they do cluster developments is Gatlinburg on those ridge tops. Westgate, 70 units out of 90 burned to the ground. 70 structures, that's 700 units. So yes, that's one of those things you have to take in consideration. I'm a trained firefighter in the state of Kentucky. I know about what's called a fire domino. You stack buildings close together, you knock one over, they all fall down. That's a fire domino. So yeah, you have to take those things into consideration, what codes are built into and what they do. And this overlay zone kind of, it's questionable. I'm also kind of wondering how that got into the Erlanger zoning ordinance. That wasn't there 10 years ago. A zoning code that allows a developer to build what he wants to do as long as it's approved in the plan. And I know the influences that builders have. You know, I've seen it with Bill Erpenbach, Erlanger Lakes. I've seen it with Dries, Lakemont. And it's almost as if maybe there's some sort of powerful pull there that if you can't win by playing by the rules, that you change the rules that you play by.
Mr. Orlo, can you wrap it up in about 20
Yep.
seconds?
Yes, I can. My son plays the same kind of games when he plays Monopoly. Sometimes, I don't know how he does it, but he ends up with all the money. I'm looking at clustered homes with a very grim view of my future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Colleen Berger, and I live at 831 Lake Run. I own one of Dries' patio homes on a single-family lot. I love my house. It's presently on the market because my husband passed away in April. The townhomes that Dries is proposing, I have a lot of friends in. Karen Weber, for instance, she's another widow. Lorraine and her husband. All these people are wonderful people. 2-car garages. They're soundproofed, they're very well planned, and I think, I'm not certain, but I believe my setbacks are a total, side setbacks are a total of 15 feet. So I can't speak to 10 feet setbacks, 5 feet on both sides, but I can speak to 15. I would say, though, that if you've got a 60-foot wide lot and your home is only 40 feet, that 5-foot setback is the minimum, okay? So if you put a 40-foot house on a 60-foot lot, you're gonna have 10 feet setback on both sides. So I can't speak to the setbacks in regards to what they're doing, but I can speak to the wonder, in my opinion, of I am looking to sell my house. In fact, right now it's on the market. And I think I would love living in this new subdivision that Dries is proposing. The reason being is I love that 42% of it now is still nature trails, and, you know, the deers can come up, and a pond and lovely trees, and it's not going to be affected. And I think more to the point is I think we have to start looking at our blessings, because somebody else could come in and we don't know what we're going to get. And I would encourage you all perhaps to drive through Eastbourne of Lakemont, or even, you know, I'm also a realtor, but I sold one on Park, and they had a little bit of stone on the front, and it sold for $272,000, and that was just this past July. But it was a beautiful patio home. And so I would encourage everybody that might not be for this plan to take their time and drive through Lakemont. It's an enjoyable subdivision, and I love the trails, and I love the architecture and the settings. So I've probably overdone my 3 minutes, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, next we've got Ronald Luby.
My name's Ronald Luby. I own a small farm on the north side of the List Farm. Well, it's north and east. I probably have the biggest exposure land-wise to the List Farm. I happen to be very happy with the way the Dries company has drawn up their plans and the green space they've put in. I can't speak to the density because that's not my issue. My issue is my neighbor, my new neighbor. I knew that eventually the List family would sell it and it would be developed. And you remember that family has owned that property for over 70 years. And that's their right to do. And I think the Dries company has every right to develop it based on the code, the building codes, and the jurisdiction of the city of Erlanger. So I just, from a neighbor point of view, I'm okay with what's going on. And I knew the inevitable was going to happen. And as it happened, I can live with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got Debbie Cook, and I know Ben Taylor's also on here. I don't think you wanted to speak again, did you? And then Pat Hullab.
Hi, I'm Debbie Cook, also Debbie List, one of the owners of the farm. Thank you so much, Colleen. Thanks, Ronnie. You know, it's been emotional hearing all the negatives because we grew up there. We've been there since 1950-something. We played ball in the middle of the street. No one even claimed Narrows Road. We were Covington, we were South Fort Mitchell, we were Fort Mitchell, and then we were Erlanger. We love it out there, but Dries has always, they came to us first, thankfully, and they've always made great communities. You know, I live in Lakemont, back by, not really by Colleen, but over on the other side, but it's a beautiful community. Dries makes it a nice community to live in. The appearance when you first pull into a development is always wonderful. So I'm sorry for some of the negative things. I'm sorry that we might cause more traffic, but everybody's caused traffic out there. That's just what happens. You know, we used to play in the street. We used to ride horses on the street. You know, that just, things change. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, Pat. Welcome.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Mayor, esteemed City Council. Thanks for hearing me. I've been to the meetings. I've been listening to everything. I brought my notes because I'm old and I forget. So I want to go through my notes. I live in the Mesa Drive subdivision. My property, as well as Trails of Doe Run, Sherborne, Brightleaf, and sections of Narrow Road are all zoned R1C. I do not want a zoning change to allow the landscape of home ownership in my area to change. I especially do not want a road being connected to Mesa Drive. I know that would warrant a waiver because of the pitch and grading and so on and so forth. But I know that if this zoning change is passed, that waiver is sure to come on the backside. No one leaving the subdivisions, coming out of Nelson Road or out of the new subdivision, would want to tackle that hill and that curve on Narrows Road. So guess what? All the traffic would probably come through Mesa Drive. I feel that some of the statements made by a few of the folks in the meetings I've attended have been disingenuous. Yes, the property could be sold under the current R1C zoning, and a builder can build 200+ homes on the property. However, that would never happen. The cost to any builder to do considerable earth moving and grading and filling in of creeks and ponds would be prohibitive. Also, filling in some of the ponds and the streams might not even be allowed by the state agencies. The pushing of the green spaces are, so none of that has to be done. The builders and others have tried to sell this as a senior community. Most true senior communities I'm familiar with have strict restrictions on children, community centers for the senior, and so on and so forth. The number one issue which has already been reiterated over and over is this traffic problem. When the traffic study is done, I do not think enough thought has gone into who's going to pay to widen Narrows Road. More importantly to me is that Narrows is my only way out to get to Turkey Foot Road. So other than Spring Valley, and I'm sure Spring Valley would love to have all of that traffic going through their subdivision to get to Narrows. I'm wondering, we talked about the fire department, and I've been reading a lot about cluster homes, et cetera, especially if
Mrs. Holub,
they're
can you wrap it up in about 30
single-story
seconds?
clusters. Pardon?
Can you wrap it up in about 30 seconds?
We can.
Okay.
The wood trusses are lighter weight, and vinyl siding is very combustible. And I'd be concerned that once these homes would catch fire, that it would just go from one to the other to the other. And lastly, Pam Brophy from Mesa Drive subdivision and I took a ride to Harmony, which this community is supposed to be representative of. I do not know how old the houses were that we saw that are built 10 foot from one another, but it was not something that I would like to see in our community. The siding on all the houses had mold-like stains. It was horrible. And for all of us who take pride in our neighborhoods, I think it was unacceptable. I knew that they would be building on this farm for a long time. Once the farm property was ready to be sold, I have no issue with it. I take issue with changing the zoning and putting all those houses 10 foot from one another. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, next we've got Kimberly Needham, and Heather Isler will be after that.
Hey, so I want to say thank you for the mayor and the council for hearing us yet again, and to Dries. Dries has done a lot of changes, and I am, of course, the one that has the 18 neighbors going in. And I've probably been one of the biggest voices. But I will say that I do appreciate the conditions of the tree line. That is a big thing for us. And I think a large group of us got together over the weekend, and we talked, and there were a couple things that came up that I think really comes down to council more than it does to Dries. One, with the traffic, of course, we've already talked about that, is can we look at reducing the speed? That seems to be one of the major issues with the neighborhood, is they do. They come down, and I actually set out because I thought, I don't remember them going that fast. Yeah, they do. I didn't realize it, but they really do. So, and the stop sign, I think, would be a real big help. The other thing is, and I think some of our older neighbors will contest, they live on the opposite side of the road of their mailbox. And so when people are going 35, 40 miles down, and they're trying to get their mail, and I've watched some of them stand there more than a couple minutes, and when it's cold. So again, these things are probably city council issues, maybe post office issues. Maybe we can move those over. That gives them a little more safety, and I think people would feel better about that. I'm not real thrilled about the cluster homes. I mean, it's just not something that I personally like, but I do know that if you all are holding them accountable to what they are going to do, don't let them change. And my father was good friends with Ralph, and I know that he upheld his part, and I know things have changed. I have looked into it. Management has changed over the years, and they're right. They're not lying about that. I have checked into that as well. If we can hold them accountable to what they're doing, if they do everything they say they're going to do, if we can reduce the speed limit, put in the stop signs, make it safer for the neighbors that currently live there, I think then it becomes not an equal win-win, because we're going to lose a lot of things. The community gets to see the green space. I'm not going to see the green space. I'm going to see trees, and I'd rather take that than the backyard. But we have to make conditions too. And if those conditions, I think the problem is the safety is what most of the generation is looking at. And unfortunately, Dries can't do the safety. So it's going to be the post office, and it's going to be the council, and it's going to be the speed limit. And I think if we take those things into consideration and we can tell our neighbors that they're going to be safe to go get their mail, something that we take really for granted, that maybe we can all live with it. And then the list can move on and they can be done. And Dries can put in their homes, and maybe some of our neighbors will actually like. But I think when it all comes down, I think Dries has made a great movement. I think you all have listened to, not just here, but in people's homes. They've opened their homes to us, and they've listened to our concerns, and we are grateful for that. And I thank you for your time.
Yeah, you do bring up a very good point there with the mailboxes, and that isn't something that we can't make Dries necessarily do that, and that's not a city issue either, but that will definitely be a post office issue, and that's something that we can help facilitate, and I think that's a great idea. I think they do need to all move on to the same side of the street as the houses. All right,
Hi, I'm Heather
thank you.
Eisler, and I just wanted to say I do still disagree with the zoning change. I'm sorry to say that, but I feel really strongly about it. I feel like we could have our cake and eat it too. I mean, there could be big, beautiful lots with big, beautiful homes on that farm. And they don't have to be the small cluster homes, and everybody would be happy. We wouldn't be here right now. Dries builds a beautiful home. So I think that that's something that, it kind of makes me a little disheartened about this whole process, because there are alternatives. The market is great. I think they would sell easily. Number two, it said stage 1 on all the drawings. So how do we know what stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 are going to be? And are they going to be in the same mindset of what we all discussed here? Thirdly, I saw there was a 150-foot minimum buffering site where Narrows and Nelson come into it together. That road is going to have to be fixed. Where Narrows and Nelson, does everybody know where I'm talking about? Down the hill. So that 150 feet, is that like before or after they build? Because that road is going to be moved over. It's only a matter of time. It's going to have to be. It's a safety issue. So please take that into consideration, because then we will be literally on somebody's back porch when that road is fixed. Yeah, I guess, I love Lakemont. I think Dries builds a great home. I do love the green space. I think they've made some good concessions and changes here, but I am against the zoning change still.
Thank you. Is it Eileen Taylor? Yeah, thank you, sorry. And then we've got Josh Blair.
I'll just be really quick because I didn't make it to previous meetings, so I probably have more questions than everybody else that everybody already knows the answers for. But what I'm listening to what you say is the city of Erlanger does not need to commit any funds to widening the roads or making Narrows any safer, regardless of the zoning change. That's not on the table, correct? So from the revenues that they'll gain from the additional taxes on all the property taxes, right now there's nothing slated from the Erlanger budget to make that road safer. Am I understanding that correctly?
That would typically be the normal process, is that tax dollars would have to go to improve the road.
And
it is a city-owned road, yes.
So how far down the road after this development gets started and completed would that become a subject for our part of Erlanger community? I mean, is that something that, how can the citizens that are coming here today with these concerns, when would the next step be for us to say, okay, so the development's there, it's in progress, the tax revenues are there, maybe, 2 years after it's all done, but it's going to be continual. As a citizen that lives back in Doe Run, and you see people jogging down that steep hill, and they're adults, and they're doing the best they can, and you're an adult driver, and you sure don't want to hit them. But it's dark, and you never know, and what if one day Public Works doesn't get out there and get the ice off it soon enough? I mean, there's just a reality of the danger of that road. It is very dangerous. So I'm just curious, when, after all this is done, regardless of the zoning change or not, does the group of citizens that live in that area and continue to be concerned, when do we get to bring that before, and how would we bring that before the city to say, no, really, this has got to change? Because when would a citizen do that, and how would a citizen do that?
Yeah, so you know, somebody can come up to any one of the public meetings to discuss those kind of issues or concerns. But
Okay.
what you're talking about, I think, will be isolated, or it'll be identified in the traffic impact
Okay,
study.
and I have just one more question. The slide that was up there said 157 units, but are those just the single residential homes? And then I saw another number, like 48 units would be the townhomes? So there's really a total of 205 units?
No, the total
No,
is-
of the 57, okay, thank you for that. And then if there was no zoning change, would the townhomes come off the table?
Yes.
What wouldn't happen if you didn't get the zoning change?
It would be
More
the-
single-family residents?
it'd be
If you
the-
didn't get the zoning change, would you purchase the property? Is that why we're here? Okay. Well,
Yeah, so-
I mean, I guess it's all talking about, do you do the zoning change or do you not do the zoning change? And if the zoning change keeps Dries from being interested in purchasing altogether, I would think that would be of a concern to the committee
Yeah, it
and
certainly should
to
be.
the List family.
Yeah.
So can you comment on that or not?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer all those, and
Okay.
I certainly don't want to speak for Dries,
Okay.
so don't hesitate to correct me. But some of the things that I have heard over the course of the discussions on this, they have shown a plan that would fit, I think it was about 175 homes that would conform to the existing zone. The reason why Dries is proposing the townhomes and the patio homes is because they are experts in the market, and I would never pretend to know more than them and their staff. And what they are saying is, as proposed, they expect the build-out of the site to be in the 6 to 7 year range. If they are to do it as regular single-family homes in that area, they expect the build-out to be more in the 20-year range. So that stretches it out quite a bit. And, you know, one of the things that I was actually even thinking about this morning is, as far as the traffic issue goes, you know, I think there's no better way to be able to make sure that traffic is not an issue than to get the development done quick. If we stretch that development out over a 20-year period, there's going to be enough change in leadership, there's going to be enough change in the city of Erlanger. A lot of people may not remember what was agreed to and how things were done. I kind of thought like it would be like boiling a frog. You know, have you ever heard that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, slowly turning up the heat and, you know, so.
So just one further question, 'cause if the townhomes, I'm also in real estate, and my opinion is there's a severe shortage of patio-style homes. I feel like that's one of the largest needs of our community, that there's plenty of people ready to downsize. And it is kind of a happy medium between a standalone residential single-family home that's more expensive maybe, and you wouldn't get as many units in there, but it's also, to me, hotter ticket sale than a townhome, for example, because townhomes still involve going upstairs oftentimes, and the larger community that seems to be purchasing are people who really aren't looking for stairs in their life. So just wondering if more patio homes in your plan and eliminating the townhomes together, it would be like a happy medium between not having quite as much density. Would that require a zoning change? I don't know. And providing a product that I think would sell much faster in 20 years than the townhomes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, next we've got Mr. Josh Blair. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, my name's Josh Blair. I live on Woodchase Drive, a little bit less than a half a mile from the List farm. And I would say that actually I don't appreciate what Dries has presented today. I personally find it very insulting that they are throwing us some scraps in order to appease us. I want to make it very clear to council that we are not asking for a half a dozen trees. We're not asking for a little bit of a buffer zone. We're not asking for a sidewalk to Mesa. We're asking that this zoning proposal change be denied. In addition to all the traffic concerns that people have addressed today, which I obviously won't reiterate, but those are our tax dollars that are paying for that. That's not Dries that's paying for that. One thing that hasn't been addressed and I haven't heard in discussions is the strain that's going to put on the Kent County School District. We're hearing about Governor Bevin's proposed budget cuts, 6.25%, 7% across the board. 62% reduction in transportation budget. What is a 62% reduction in transportation budget from the state means? It means the local school districts are going to have to raise taxes quite a bit. So you're putting in 160, 175 homes, whatever. More than 90% of Kentucky's students go to public school. So I think it's safe to say that anyone that moves in there that has a child from 4 to 17 or 18 is going to send their kids to the Kent County School District. So that's going to create transportation issues with the buses, which are now, again, going to be cut 62% from the state. I have a son at Turkeyfoot. I have twin daughters who are in Kaywood, and those schools are at capacity. If anybody, I went to Turkeyfoot in the 90s. If you remember the trailers that they built, who pays for that? The taxpayers. So it's not just about safety. I mean, it is about safety. It is about stop signs. It is about sidewalks. It is about roads. But you got to think about the school buses. You got to think about Kaywood. You got to think about Turkeyfoot. You got to think about Dixie, and the influx, just the huge increase in the amount of students that are now. We're going to have to pay teachers. We're going to have to pay counselors. We're going to have to find room to house all of these students. It's going to be a big issue. So, so again, just to make it perfectly clear, we're asking council not to approve the zoning change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's all that we have signed up. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak? Please. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name.
My name's Dave Costello. I live on Buck Hill, and I just want to remind everyone that this was found unfavorable by KCPC. And they also had determined that this is not in line with Direction 2030. And I know the bone that Dries has thrown here by making these changes, I would find it hard to believe that that would be accepted by KCPC if it went through that process again. I think they would also find it unfavorable. I would also add to that we've heard council mention that 170 homes if the zoning remained the same. I think that's the big problem that KCPC had, that they didn't believe that for a minute, that it would be 170 homes if it remained the same, but it would be significantly less homes that could actually be put on that property. So I think that wouldn't change if, again, that went back through the process. I'm not against development. I am against the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Anybody else like to get up and speak? All right, I don't see any. So, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could
Mr.
I ask
Nicely.
Dries a question?
Sure.
With the houses you're wanting, there going to be 2 bedrooms?
The townhomes generally have 2 to 3 bedrooms.
What does a regular house have?
3 to 4 bedrooms. This buyer generally is not trying to buy a home to fill with bedrooms. They take secondary rooms and make them offices, hobby rooms, things like that. And someone did mention the townhomes, so they're ranch-style homes. So you walk into off the garage or the front door, and the bedrooms are all on that main level. There's no upstairs, but then there is a lower level.
My question is, a 2-bedroom house is not going to have as many people there with cars as a 4-bedroom house. Would that be correct?
I think that's a fair conclusion.
So that would be no more traffic than if you put bigger houses and smaller houses.
Yeah, I think in a lot of the cases where you got the 2-story family home, you may have a teenager who's driving, 2 parents, in most cases, so you might have 3 to 4 cars. Most of what we see in our communities is 2 cars if it's a couple. If it's a widower or a single or divorced person, maybe it's 1 car.
So actually, you're not going to have no more traffic with building the ones you want than you would building all the bigger ones. Counting, you're going to have more people in the bigger and more cars.
Yes, and I think I talked about that a little bit in the last meeting on information from our traffic engineer preliminarily, is that the buyer profile we see coming here takes trips at different times of the day. They're not necessarily all working and at the front of the community at 7:30, and they also generate less trips because of hauling kids and all those types of things that you would see in a traditional single family.
I was more or less wanting to know how much more traffic, or would it be about the same if you didn't have it rezoned as if you did?
Okay.
And another question I got, there's only 2 instances, but someone made the statement to me that you got a right-of-way back there that goes down towards 3L Highway. I don't know, it's going to be steep, but would that, if you had another entrance and exit out of the subdivision, wouldn't that help a lot of the traffic?
I'm not familiar with the connection you're referring to. Headed towards the lake?
Well, it's in the back of the subdivision that goes down close to Dover and Lake. And I understand they've got a right-of-way that goes down the hill.
Well, I'm not familiar with that, but I think just generally speaking, the topography, once you get past the last cul-de-sac, to get down in the valley towards the lake would prohibit you from having a secondary access. So
I mean, it's on that end.
Mrs. List is telling me that's not where it's located, so I'm not aware of that. I think we're bordered by the property that Mr. Luby owns.
Yes, but if you had an exit road, it would alleviate a lot of the traffic up on Narrows and Nelson Road.
Well, in my opinion, we've kind of decentralized the traffic. We have 3 entrances into the community at various points. So we're not cycling all the residents into one entrance exit, so I think that helps. But I did have a slide, if it's important to you, about the difference in traffic between single family and townhomes, if you'd like to see that from our previous meeting.
I think you've answered my question.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Mrs. Pitts?
My first question is to Jack. If we do the zone change, and let's say Dries, this kind of backs up to what Linda Moss said. If Dries backs out, they just decide, you know what, we're not going to build there, and it backs out, but the zone is changed, then what happens?
A couple things. First of all, right within the ordinance, if you pull up the ordinance of what this zone change is, 10.1.2, and there is a timing element to it. So if they do absolutely nothing, this overlay zone goes away after 12 months. They do have to have some level of construction and do something. More importantly, and we've seen this before in council, the last example of when we had to make an ordinance to amend one of these development plan agreements, and maybe Mr. Hahn can remember, or someone on council, is when there was a dealership that was proposed probably 20 years ago with a development plan agreement. And I would say about 2 or 3 years ago, we had to actually create a new ordinance to change that development plan agreement, because I don't even remember what was going to go there. I'm going to say it was a Rite Aid, a CVS, but it was certainly not a dealership. So this development plan agreement with very specific detail would be recorded in the Kenton County Clerk's office. So whoever ends up developing this property would have to adhere to the strict standards that are in the proposed ordinance that is in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I just wanted to clarify with Dries a couple questions too. The patio homes and the townhomes are all ranch style, no 2 stories, and they all have walkout basements. Is that correct?
All the patio homes have the bedrooms on the first floor.
Right.
We do have some new floor plans. In fact, the one that's over at Enclave that I mentioned does have a sort of loft area. So I would be careful in saying it doesn't have a second story. Bedrooms are primarily focused on the first floor.
Is that the townhomes, though? What about?
Townhomes do have a basement, and that is always finished. So there's a rec room.
But the townhomes could be 2 floors too, or just one, besides the basement?
Those are 2 floors, but I want to be careful when I say that. The ranch, the level at the garage, the front door is the first floor, and then you go down.
Right.
We don't go up for a second
Right.
story.
Okay, that's, I want to clarify that.
Okay.
What's the other thing? And if we didn't change the zone, you could still put patio homes there, correct?
We would not do that with our current product.
No, I'm just saying, the way it's zoned now, it's single family would be regular homes, or patio homes still fits in that zone, like if somebody else came in.
I don't think there's any provision that would preclude patio homes. Then that's a loosely defined term. We use it to mean maintenance.
And I've spent a lot of time, as many of council has, investigating Harmony, and even, I think is it Arcadia out in Campbell County?
Yes.
And some of us drove out there and checked it out and asked questions. I even went and did a tour of one of your townhomes and didn't say who I was, and she said, you can tour it, but we don't have any left. And I actually have been very skeptical of this whole thing, because I personally don't like HOAs, or I like a yard where I can fence it, but I did speak to a lot of people that feel differently than I do, and a couple friends of mine are actually building out in Arcadia, and I didn't realize that. And they pointed something out to me that I didn't even think about, and they said a lot of their friends are snowbirds. So they're gone many months a year, and their kids are grown, and so I think that kind of answers the school district thing. But do you have a percentage, do you know, of people that are snowbirds, or off the top of your head, any guesstimate?
I don't. I think it probably tends to be more the people in the townhomes, like you mentioned, because they literally don't do anything outside, so they can sort of lock and leave. We joke. But I think there's a fair amount of patio homeowners. I know a couple personally that live in Harmony that also travel to Colorado in the summer. So they're not snowbirds, but they like to be where it's cooler. So the whole idea is that that lifestyle and the maintenance allows you to do that. We do studies on school generation, and I can't give you an exact percentage, but in the communities that I know, there's almost 0 school children being generated out of this product, unless, you know, someone is caring for a grandchild or something like that. But the direct buyer is not bringing school-age children with them. It's just, we don't regulate it, but by default, by the time they've made this life choice and are downsizing or whatever it is, life stage they're doing, that the children are not there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions on council? All right, seeing none, then Frank, do you have a, oh, Kevin, a motion?
Yes, sir. In regard to the unfavorable recommendation of the Kenton County Planning Commission in regard to the zoning map amendment of Liss Farm as proposed by the Dries Company, the committee recommendation is to override the unfavorable recommendation and proceed with that zoning map amendment, but with some restrictions and limitations on the development, improvement, use, and construction on the Liss Farm. The basis of the override is a finding from the evidence in the record of the commission that the proposed map amendment is generally in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan and is appropriate. The development, improvement, use, and construction on the Liss Farm shall be restricted to that described in the Liss Property Stage 1 Concept Plan dated February 5th, 2018, and as supplemented by both, number 1, the conditions identified in the correspondence from Mr. Taylor dated February 5th, 2018, and described by him in this evening, and number 2, the conditions and other recommendations of the staff of the commission in their report and recommendation dated December 27th, 2017. these restrictions and limitations on the development, improvement, use, and construction on the List Farm shall be memorialized in a development plan agreement that shall be signed by on behalf of the City of Erlanger, the Dries Company, and the owners of the List Farm, and recorded in the office of the Kenton County Clerk at Independence, Kentucky. Is that recommendation in the form of a motion, Mr.? Yes, sir. Right? And is there a second, Mr.?
We've got a motion and a second.
Yes.
Any discussion?
I have discussion, sorry.
No.
What exactly are we doing? Are we voting tonight, or is this, can you explain the process? 'Cause
The matter was referred to the committee. The committee has made a recommendation. And they've made that recommendation in the form of a motion, which is has been seconded. That motion is up to you all. You have to make a decision on that motion. If that motion is passed, then there's an ordinance that needs to be enacted, and I can read that in my report.
And then the ordinance, it's a first reading, and then the vote is the next meeting?
That is correct.
And we would be looking to have a special meeting at our committee meeting to be able to get this within that 45-day window.
Could we push that back? Oh, okay, I see what you're saying on the 45-day. The ordinance part is the only part that kind of bothers me. It's not something that was necessarily published, but we're going to have a first reading tonight, potentially?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, typically, we would publish an ordinance before we have a first reading.
We don't publish them before the first reading. The ordinance?
Mm-hmm.
Do they?
No.
Publish it after the second reading.
Okay. Well, how would someone know to show up here if it's published after?
I think the term published is being used differently by you two. I think what the mayor is indicating is that it's on the agenda under legislation typically. And I think Frank is using the term published as it means published, which is that we would provide a summary in a newspaper publication.
You're right. Thank you.
But there's nothing that requires us. In fact, quite frankly, I had this discussion with Mr. Kramer earlier today, and it was my decision that it would seem somewhat presumptuous for us to have the ordinance in legislation prior to the vote being cast at the committee meeting. Mm-hmm. But the ordinance certainly is prepared, and and all the ordinance is it's reflective of everything that's been discussed here tonight and been discussed at the Kenton County Planning Commission meeting and the prior committee meeting.
Yeah, okay.
You know, again, if council is concerned, the ordinance only requires council to take action in 45 days, okay? So I have no problem with the motion being action, and we certainly could wait to have a first reading. I will say that Dries, and I'm not saying we need to accommodate Dries on this. If the council wants to wait another 2 weeks before first reading, that's fine, but I think Dries wants to get this project moving if it's going to be passed. You know, as quickly as possible. So from a practical perspective, if the motion carries tonight to overturn KCPC, if there are any non-substantive issues that anyone has with this ordinance that's been proposed, that certainly could be dealt with prior to the second reading.
Okay. That's a great point. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat that just into here, just for public record, because, you know, that's not going to be heard. So the initial, at our last regular meeting, we said that this discussion would happen on February 20th. And that did get changed to this evening. It was advertised. And I know that does have an air of, us trying to switch things. It was not done to try to prevent the crowd. We did our best to try to make sure that the word did get out. It was done more so to be able to fit within the 45-day requirement. This would not be a final vote. It would still have to go, it would have to have a second reading. Yes, Mr. Cahill.
So are we going to have then opportunity for public discussion on the 20th prior to our vote?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Are we going to have the public discussion, the public come forth on the 20th prior to the vote?
Sure, you've got public discussion at that meeting before the second reading, is that what you're asking? The answer is yes.
Okay.
But the vote wouldn't happen that night, correct?
It was a second reading, so.
Yeah, it would happen that night.
On a committee meeting night? Or we're saying that we'd have a special meeting?
Right.
Okay.
It has to be.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead and turn on your mic, please.
Just getting used to that. Procedurally, the motion right now is to overturn the recommendation, and it's been seconded. If we vote on that tonight and that recommendation motion passes, it seems that it would naturally follow we'd be doing an ordinance on it. So I'm not sure why we would separate those two. If we want to put it on to the 20th, it would, which I would truthfully be a little more comfortable doing, since that's what we had originally said we were going to do. If we push if we push the vote on this to the 20th, we could still do a second reading, assuming the motion is passed, because we'd still have some time of the 45 days left, would we not?
March 3rd is the 45 days. Yeah, but let me clarify on the 45 days again. All we have to do within 45 days is take action. That would be a motion. We do not.
Do we have to vote on the motion?
But sure you do. The action would be to either accept or reject KCPC.
But that's kind of my point, is if we pass the motion tonight, it's kind of then pro forma that the ordinance is going to pass, because the votes that are going to pass the motion would be the same thing as pass the ordinance.
Theoretically, but council certainly could change their vote at the second reading.
Sure.
Let the people talk before you got an early.
You know what I mean? We're going to let them talk before we vote at the next council meeting. Then we'll have the vote after that.
Yes.
So why do anything the 20th? You know what I'm saying? They could come and at the next council meeting and talk, and we can vote. People can change their votes, whatever they want to do.
But if we vote to overturn the finding of the commission, doesn't that then become an action we've taken? And we pretty much then have to do an ordinance to implement it, don't we? Mm-hmm. How do we overturn them and say there's no evidence and then not do anything about it?
The law is, thank you, that the city council is precluded from granting the map amendment without overriding the recommendation of the planning commission. The converse is not correct, is not true. You can override the recommendation of the planning commission, but not enact the ordinance. That's sort of inconsistent, but that's the way it is.
I'm a lawyer and I find that confusing.
Imagine how we feel.
So we could pass this motion and still not do the amendment.
So we can change our mind.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess that could hold true for any second reading, you know, technically.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the next door side.
Go ahead, speak to it.
This was on Facebook, Twitter, and the website. So it was on Facebook account, our Twitter account, and on our website this week, with a big triangle with a big exclamation mark with the Dries logo on it, actually.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't hear what the people there, can they come up and use the mic?
All right, so I think what we're saying, though, ultimately, Mrs. Skripski, is that the final vote would still be on the 20th. You know, so people would still have an opportunity to be here and to voice their opinion at that time.
I would feel more comfortable if we were to table this vote until the 20th, because that was the original time we gave notice. And I would make a motion that we table this and have a vote on the committee's recommendation on the 20th.
Can we override?
We need to have a special meeting, the 20th? I mean, for everybody to come. Then we would have a special meeting to read the ordinance for the first time then, and then vote on it second in March. Is that doable?
We're fine. We just have to
That's
take
fine.
action.
That's what we'll do.
Yeah, I just feel more comfortable with this since we
No,
set
that's
one
fine.
date.
The more the merrier.
2 weeks ago.
Bring it on.
You've got a motion to table that requires a second.
Patty seconded.
Come up to the mic if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, so a motion to table actually overrides the existing motion and second that are on the floor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Patty seconded it.
So we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the tabling?
No.
All in favor? Let's have a roll call vote.
Can I ask one more question first?
Okay.
What's the deadline
We have to take action within 45 days.
of what, I mean, yeah, but what is that 45 days?
I think we calculated it last time, we would be fine on the 20th.
But I mean, if, for the second reading?
No.
Oh.
You know, in an abundance of caution, we discussed that in a perfect world, we would have the second reading within the 45 days, but there's absolutely nothing in the ordinance that says anything other than take action. And Mr. Wickman and I both agree that taking action would be a vote either confirming or overturning it.
On the 20th.
And the 45 days, I understand it expires on March the 3rd, so we could have first reading at the next, whatever the committee meeting is, and then have a special meeting after that if it gets first reading. That answer your question?
We're not going to do anything right now.
Any other discussion?
When is our next council meeting? Would that fit in within 45 days, or do we have to have another special meeting?
Let's just be clear. It doesn't have to be approved in 45 days. We have to take action
Okay,
in
so
45
as long as we
days,
do
and the
the
first reading
ordinance.
would be an action.
Okay, and then I'm for that, because I agree with these people. I even was confused, and I had emails sent to me, and I even asked Mr. Kramer tonight if we were going to vote on this or not, and he said no, but anyway, I'm with Randy and Patty.
That's good.
Okay, so let's go ahead and have a roll call. We've got a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote. To table. Yes, to table.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sudkamp?
Absolutely.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Motion carries, and everybody was really good at using the mics there, except for me. Go ahead, Frank.
so that in 2 weeks, which is the normal committee meeting, we'll also have to have a special meeting
That's
of the
correct.
city council in order to consider it. Okay.
All right. So, this concludes our report of committees. You've heard the reports of our committees. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Mr. Blankenship. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried. Next, we've got the reports of representatives. Are there any reports of representatives this evening? Mrs. Kyle?
I have some important news here.
All right.
The Erlanger Historical Society, we want to mention again that the volunteers do meet every Thursday from 10 a.m. until noon to help with the 2018 Project Museum inventory. So if people want to help, just show up. The next meeting will be on the second Wednesday, which is Valentine's Day, February 14th, and we'll be showing a film about steam engines that traveled through Erlanger, and we're also going to work on the library presentation for 2018, and this year's presentation will be businesses along the Dixie in Erlanger and Ellesmere. 2018 will also be the year we're going to work on creating a new brochure for the museum and the society. January was one of those good news, bad news months for the Historical Society. The bad news, of course, everybody knows, on January 4th, Jack Shaban, past president and good friend to all of us at the Erlanger Historical Society, passed away. He will be missed greatly. He was an amazing man. He knew more about local history, science, fire, people of the past than anyone in the city. And if you ever went to any of the meetings, you could testify to that. The good news is on Tuesday, January 9th, you've probably already seen this in the news, the Society was the recipient of a grant in the amount of $856. The Kentucky Local History Trust Fund for Collection Management provides this, and the funds will be used to improve the aesthetics of the museum. The ceremony took place in the rotunda of the Kentucky State Capitol. The fund was established by the Kentucky State Legislature 3 years ago. And this is the important part that I wanted to get out. You check the box on your state tax return to donate a portion of your refund to the Kentucky Local History Trust Fund. And that's where this money comes from. So when you're doing your taxes, put a little check mark in that box. Encourage your family, friend, and neighbors to donate this year as they are filling out their Kentucky State income tax forms. Make your mark for history is the slogan. So check that little box on the Kentucky State tax form. 17 museums throughout the state received grants. The total distribution was $25,000 this year. So it's a good program. So if you can donate, please do so. And that's it.
Thank you. Any other reports?
I have no report because Kenton County Alliance didn't meet this month.
Oh, okay. All right. Seeing no other reports from representatives, we'll move on to the reports of city operations. First up, our city engineer, Mr. Viox.
I have nothing this evening, sir.
All right. Our city attorney, Mr. Gatlin.
I have nothing either, Mayor.
Our city council attorney, Mr. Wickman.
I've said enough.
Our city administrator, Mr. Kramer, I hope you follow suit.
No, sorry. I do have one little bit of a lengthy thing, but it's something that we've talked about a lot recently in reference dispatch. Over the past 4 months, the staff and I, since I've taken over this position, we've researched dispatch options to include merging with Kenton County Dispatch. After considering the new digital radio system expenses and receiving notice from the City of Ellesmere to cancel dispatch services with Erlanger, we found it's no longer financially feasible to continue operating dispatch center just for Erlanger. We did not make this recommendation lightly and have looked at this from every angle. After working with the county over the past few months, I do feel confident that Erlanger will improve their dispatch center and we will be able to merge with Kenton County and provide the same level of service to the residents that they're used to receiving. We have negotiated a memorandum of understanding with Kenton County, which was sent out last week to council. I'd like to highlight a few sections of the MOU and answer a couple concerns from previous meetings. First, the merge would take place no later than 1 January 2019. Kenton County would hire all dispatch employees at their current rate at the time of the merge. Kenton County would give Erlanger dispatchers a service credit for all employees for longevity pay purposes. Our current dispatch manager will be assigned as the assistant to the director of the Kenton County Dispatch. Our chief of police will have a permanent position on the Kenton County Emergency Communications Board. Kenton County Dispatch does provide pre-arrival instructions like CPR to citizens prior to EMS or PD arriving on scene. That was a question that came up last month. The cost of dispatch will be the same for Erlanger as all other cities in the county using the Kenton County 911 fee structure. Pending any questions from council, I would like a motion tonight to accept the MOU as it's currently written.
I have questions, actually.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Cahill.
So a couple of things I noticed with this. So with the police channel, this secondary channel with no more than 5 other cities, what's the anticipated traffic? I mean, how many police departments are we talking?
There's 19 cities in Kenton County.
Okay.
The agreement was that we would be on a channel with no more than 5.
Okay.
So 4 additional.
Is Covington on their own?
Yes.
Okay. And then with the communication center, the chief of police being on the board, who chairs that board currently? And does that rotate, or do we know that?
Joe Shriver's the county administrator.
Okay, Joe.
I'll let him answer that for us. Thank you.
You'll need to turn on the mic there, Joe.
You got to turn the mic on, Joe. Sorry.
It's got the little speak button.
Second button.
There you go.
Is that it? Is that it? I promised Matt I wouldn't speak tonight, so I'm sorry. And I was loud when I came in. I apologize. The dispatch board is made up of several entities, all of which are users to the system, and they elect the officers, the presiding officer. Right now, it's Mayor Jansing, who is there on behalf of the mayor's group. He's the mayor's group representative. You have police chief representatives, you have the fire chief representatives, and then you have appointments. Who else is on there? Well, obviously, by ordinance, we anticipated a potential merger back when we created the board, and so this ordinance is from 2012, which actually gave the police chief the position we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Sedkamp?
I just, this is a very, very, very emotional thing for me. I've been around since dirt. I'm not going to apologize for that, but I ran on squad back in the 80s. County didn't do anything right in the 80s. And I can remember our police officers all but taking numbers and waiting in line to be served from dispatch. I am thrilled beyond words that there finally will be some EMS services coming out of county, because I happen to have a friend whose husband went down with a heart attack, and they contacted county, and they couldn't give her any information about how to do CPR or anything else. He was a survivor. This for me is not now, nor ever, nor can it ever be about money. These are people's lives we're talking about here. And I know for a fact that Matt did everything but run down Madison Avenue stark naked to try and make this stay here. And for that, I will be forever grateful. But I just hope you do it right. You have my blessings. You have great staff coming. Don't do them wrong. Thanks. Oh, I just got a promise. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion we end.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Does anybody have any more questions reference to MOU or any? Okay.
Did I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Nicely. Any other discussion? All in favor, let's have a roll call vote.
Mr. Montgomery,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sudkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carries.
That's all I had to report, Mayor.
Thank you. You've heard the reports of our representatives in city operations. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Pitts, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Motion carried. Mrs. Hoffman, is there any other correspondence this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The city received thank you letters from the Erlanger-Ellesmere School Resource Centers and Family Resource Centers thanking the employees and the anonymous Erlanger resident who made donations to their organizations during the holiday season. And the city also received a thank you letter from Bill Howard and the Erlanger United Methodist Church thanking the city for being a collection site for their annual Community Kindness Drive. That's all, sir.
All right, thank you. And then next, we've got the bids for the division surplus property. Is there a presentation prepared for this?
I have what we received from the bids.
Oh, okay.
The bid openings. So,
Wait a minute. We had spent this.
Yeah, yeah. Is that something that we can, or do we share that after we talk about the bids? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so the presentation that we have is it's information on who presented the bids. It was from Housing Opportunities of Northern Kentucky. Do you want to? Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do that while we're bringing it up.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and read off the bids?
Sure. Okay, so we advertised for 2 bid openings. One was for the sale of 433 Division Street, and the other was for 437 Division Street. And we received only 1 bid for each one, HONK, and I'm not quite sure what it stands for.
Housing Opportunities of Northern Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
They placed the bid for each one, and each one was for $8,000.
You have your email. I just emailed you that presentation.
Okay.
Does it talk about them wanting to do single-family homes?
So this is just really about
Okay.
Okay, I have it up, Matt. I have it, but I don't know how to switch through the different slides. It's not giving me the, oh, okay.
Mayor, Ms. Fetty has.
You want me to do that full screen?
Go ahead.
Can I motion to table this to the special committee, the special council meeting on February 20th?
I second that. I don't think we have anything left to concentrate on this tonight.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind coming up. What she was saying is she's going to be out of town on the 20th. Would you prefer we go ahead and discuss it this evening? There's a little button.
I would have brought my whole street here. We all have feelings about this property.
Sure.
This is just as important to us as Lakemont.
You know, we're a small little street in Erlanger, but we are mighty, and we are.
Yeah.
Good for you.
No.
No, I mean, we have.
Mrs. Miller, would you mind hitting there's a little button for talk? There you go.
You'd think a speech therapist would see that, you know? Anyhow, and I talk quite a bit.
Could I
every day,
propose
all day
that maybe
long.
we table it until the next regular
When would the
council
next-
meeting? It would be March 6th,
Okay,
is that right?
Will that work for you?
that would work. And if it could please be put on all of your social media so that we can get the hype that everyone else does, we will get the street here. We will fight.
Okay. Okay.
We,
well,
you
we
know,
can table
this means just as much to us as every other development.
it. I believe you. So
Okay.
that's what we can table it.
Okay.
Until
March the 6th.
Yes.
At 7 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, I will be here.
Okay, thank you.
And I will be, anyhow.
Okay.
That's
great. Thank you.
Fight might be a, yeah.
Does that cause any other problems?
Well, I'm very passionate, and I can fight if I'm put up to it, but a lot of people know me,
Okay.
so,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Any other old business?
I'm gonna leave mine on all the time. Make sure when we put these meetings out, we put 6:30. I know people think it's special meeting,
Oh.
it might be 7. For council meeting, make sure it says, they all know.
6:30 on the 20th.
20th.
Yeah, okay.
This is being pushed to the council meeting.
Right. The next regular March council meeting. Yeah.
We need a vote on that table, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a motion and or did we have a second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second to table the division surplus property. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the tabling carries. Any other new business to discuss? All right, Mrs. Sudkamp,
I won't keep you.
thank you.
Mark your calendars, March 17th, Super Bowl, Yellin' with Helen. This family has already donated $188,000 putting these bowl-a-thons on for cancer research. God bless you, Wickman family. And even if you don't bowl, oh my gosh, everybody that you know and love is in that building, and they got good cold beer. Bye.
All right. Next, we've got legislation. We've got the municipal order on the surplus property, which we are tabling. And we've got the,
I don't think we're taking surplus property. We're moving
oh, is that
forward
the
with
different? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is different. We're moving forward with that.
Okay, okay, thank you. Go ahead.
This is a municipal order of the City of Erlanger and Kenton County, Kentucky, making the written determinations required by KRS 82083 for the sale or other disposition of property owned by the city. As indicated in the attached chart, there is a multitude of items that are being disposed because of age and condition, and you can see that the items are either disposed of by electronic auction, trade-in, or selling to another governmental agency. And they are all listed here. There's quite a few items.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And then the other municipal order, we've already moved, seconded, and voted on.
Yes.
And that is the dispatch memorandum, so we're not going to redo that. Then lastly, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion by Mr. Nicely, second by Mr. Blankenship. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried. Meeting adjourned.